Inshallah, we will be continuing our discussion, but before that, we know that there has been a good news, a positive news. We are talking about the Oxford vaccine. Now, I'd like to talk about it more in detail, but I'll let our guest on the show tonight will discuss a little bit about it. We'll discuss about what the vaccine is, how it works, what are the implications, and the myth that are surrounding the vaccine. We hear a lot of stuff on our social media platform, on WhatsApp, on Facebook pages. How much do we believe and what do we believe in, and how can we differentiate between truth and myth? All of that we'll inshallah try and discuss on our tonight's show. But before that, let us introduce Dr. Wajid Akhter, who is a GP as well as Vice President of BIMA. Let's welcome him on the show. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Wajid.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for having me here.
Barakallah feek, and thank you very much for giving us your valuable time. Now, before I move on to the main discussion, I've introduced you as Vice President of BIMA. Just in 60 seconds, if you can explain what is BIMA for those who don't know about it.
BIMA is the British Islamic Medical Association, and basically what's happened is a large number of Muslim healthcare professionals, whether it's doctors, pharmacists, dentists, nurses, we've all joined together, united under one umbrella, so that we can inspire, inshallah, each other and serve our community better. So when you want to know what is the advice of the Muslim healthcare professionals that take into account the Islamic side, the Muslim community needs, and the medical side, inshallah, you know who to come to.
Is it a registered charity?
It's not a charity yet. It is an organization.
Okay.
But you can go to britishima.org to find out more.
Thank you very much for that. Now, moving on to the main discussion, we all know, I'm sure you've watched the news, University of Oxford and the vaccine, and we have heard a lot of positive news today. At least there is some hope than before. Now, without me giving out any details, you as a doctor, you've heard the news, you've followed the news. Give us an update on this vaccine.
Alhamdulillah, this is indeed good news, and it's one of 3 vaccines which now seem to be in the pipeline, nearly coming to the market. So we have the Pfizer vaccine, which had a lot of positive publicity, and then we had the Moderna vaccine, and now this Oxford vaccine. So this is number 3. It's a really good, I think, example of how, you know, when people, they break down boundaries, when people, they really put their mind to it, humanity, mashallah, you know, mankind, we can really achieve a good thing. This disease that was only started 1 year ago has created so many difficulties that we're coming up with real solutions to it now, alhamdulillah.
Now, you've mentioned a very valid point there. Humanity, when they put their minds into it with Allah's will, of course, they can achieve miracles. Now, the question here that I would like to ask you, we have read about it. Normally, a vaccine takes a decade or so to get authorized by the regulators, to come into effect, to get it set up, everything. Whereas this vaccine, or the vaccines you've mentioned, rightly so, the 3 vaccines that we've heard, have been developed in less than 10 months. How is that possible?
Let me tell you how that's possible. If you needed a gallbladder surgery, it's not an emergency surgery, but your doctor said, I need to do gallbladder surgery on you, right? Not today, but tomorrow, and the appointment is in 2 months' time, and you're saying, what's taking them so long? And then after 2 months, then you go there, then he looks at you, they do this, etc., and then they call you back for the pre-operation, and so on. And between the time when the doctor told you need the surgery to getting the surgery, it can take 6 months. But nauzubillah, if your gallbladder breaks, now it's an emergency. Within 6 minutes, you're in the hospital and they're already cutting you open, getting the gallbladder out. How is that possible? 6 months and 6 minutes. What's the difference? Same surgery, same human being, same surgeon. Because in the first case, it's not an emergency. It's an elective procedure. We have time on our side. We can take all the normal time that we want. We can take precautions. Other emergencies take priority. But in the second case, if we don't act now, you will die, nauzubillah. So you need to work like this. You need to work fast. Everyone makes it work. So this is the same thing here. It doesn't mean that because it's happened fast, it doesn't mean that it's not safe. It means that it has been operated on with as an emergency. It has a lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of manpower. The amount of money put behind this is more money than a vaccine would normally get over 10 years. So many factors come into it. So what I would like to tell our Muslim brothers and sisters, because we have a tendency to believe in lots of conspiracy theories, we think, you know what? It was
I'll
quick.
come to
That means
that. I'll come to that conspiracy theory later on because I've got some particular questions to ask about it. Now, you have mentioned about it that there is a need, beautifully explained when you've given the analogy and you've compared it with the need and about emergency and something that can be delayed. Clearly, we can see it's a matter of urgency and importance. Now, with regards to any medication, we know there are pros and cons, there can be side effects. Now, with regards to vaccine, particularly the ones that are currently being developed, inshallah, hopefully very soon, these will be available. Now, what about the side effects? Or how much do you know about it so far, whatever we are aware of it?
look, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a human being too. If I'm going to get this vaccine, I'm gonna give to my children. I need to know what are the side effects, how safe it is. So what we know so far is that the side effects, there have been no major side effects reported. There have been minor side effects that can occur with most vaccines, pain over the site or infection where they give you the vaccination. Some people have a mild fever, aches and pains, but they've been very mild. We still don't have the data on phase 3. Phase 3 is the human trials, and for some of them, we still don't have that data. So that information is not 100% out yet. And this is why we want to wait to get this information, because that information is with the regulators, the people who are going to decide, is this safe or is it not? And then they're going to release it to us, and we will digest it and release it to the public as well, inshallah.
And those who have the fear that it might have any negative impact, we are not going to the conspiracy theory yet. Say, for instance, valid concerns that because I may have, or an individual may have an underlying health issue. Now, this may have a severe impact. It may perhaps not been tested. And the other thing that we know for sure, that these vaccines, when it comes into effect, they have to pass rigorous tests and they have to get authorization from the regulator. Briefly, if you can explain to our Muslim viewers who are not aware of regulations and how it works and what kind of tests the vaccines have to undergo, without getting into too much detail, just so that our viewers know that there are all the measures and tests in place before it gets to our patient.
Look, there are vaccine development has to go through many different layers. There are different phases. There are phases that they look at it theoretically. There are phases they look at it on animal testing. They look on human testing. Then they test over a long period of time. They test on different types of people, different genders, different ethnicities, different age group. So the vaccines have gone through more tests than most other things that you've been through, like more than your car that you drive. They will
Fair enough.
have gone through a longer period of testing and analysis to do that. This vaccine, they might have squeezed the time, so they've done the tests quickly, but they should still have gone through the safety checks. It's not in the interests of the company because their reputation will be destroyed.
Correct.
It's not in the interests of the government because if they have a lot of side effects for the people, then the people will lose faith in the vaccination, or the people will have a lot of claims and they lose their popularity. So it's in no one's interest to push forward with a vaccine that's unsafe.
Briefly, if you can just give us a bit of information if you're aware of it. For instance, especially our elderly within the community, we have a lot of underlying health issues, whether it be diabetic, whether it be high blood pressure, sugar, cholesterol level, and even cancer as well. Now, if you have any information, we've seen about priorities, who will be prioritized with regards to vaccination. What's the understanding? Is it the young who will have more easy access to it? Is it the older generation, or is it the one who needs the most?
The information that we're getting is that, and this I'm not sure if this is completely solidified, but it'll be the people who are in care homes and the care workers inside the care homes, so the most vulnerable. Then healthcare, people who are working in healthcare, and then going down from there. The young, fit, and healthy will probably be in the last cohort. So it is going in order of the most vulnerable.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. And if our viewers obviously would want to find out the details, surely there are websites out there, government website and NHS website, that will give detail. Now, with regards to the solution, now everyone is talking about vaccine is the solution. Is that true? And is this something that is the long-term policy of the government or even people in the medical profession? Is that the only solution, or will there be anything better than this?
Vaccine, you have to remember, is not a cure.
Okay.
It's not like an antibiotic. It doesn't kill the disease. It gets you to have a lower version of it, or it primes your body to something that's similar to the disease, so that you can fight it off quickly, or it doesn't come to you in the first place. Is it a long-term solution? That's a very difficult question, because we don't know if you're going to have that same vaccination again every year. It's unlikely. The flu vaccine, you need to have it every year, because the flu changes quite
Correct.
every year. It's a different type.
Correct.
So we don't know whether we're going to have it once every 10 years, or how long it's going to last for. Is the coronavirus itself going to change? So there are a lot of factors we don't know about it, but we know that it is. There's a famous quote that this is not the end. This might not even be the beginning of the end, but it's the end of the beginning.
Fair enough. Now, say for example, we fast forward the time, and let's say the vaccine has been accessible now. It's accessible to us, and someone has taken the vaccine. Now, does it mean that he cannot contract coronavirus second time?
I don't know the answer to that. That's the idea, that we hope that if the vaccines are working, and as they say, they're working better than most vaccines normally work, so they're working at a better rate, the hope is that they should not contract coronavirus. How many different, there's a few different variations. How much of it protects, that percentage who the vaccine doesn't work in, can they get like coronavirus, but a much more milder form? These questions, we simply don't have that information.
Now, I appreciate that, and you have spoken very validly there. Now, with regards to, say, for an instance, if someone has taken vaccination, if someone has taken the first dose or half a dose, now, obviously, that doesn't mean they have to go and mix around freely. It surely means they have to still follow the guidelines, maintain the social distancing rules, and follow the government guidelines. It doesn't mean that because I have now the vaccine, that means I'm immune to it and I can go and mix freely.
No, exactly. There's going to be it's going to be a really important thing. Keeping to the rules is not about protecting yourself. It's not just about protecting. It's about protecting other people. People, when you wear a mask, you are protecting other people more than you're protecting yourself. So it's the same thing, that if you get the vaccine, just deciding that khalas, it's over, I can do whatever I want, I can live whatever I want, you may be causing harm to other people, or you may be giving a wrong example. The scientific community, the government, will give us a better idea of when things should open up and how, and we should try to stick with those rules. Some of those we might have to adjust for our local communities, but in general, it doesn't mean that the day you get the vaccine, it's a party time. That's not the way it is.
Now, you've touched upon the conspiracy. I'd like to highlight certain issues that we are constantly now being flooded. I would rather say the information we have been constantly flooded on our social media platform with regards to we shouldn't be taking this. This is, it will do harm. There are a lot of theories that have been, people have made their own understanding, own judgment. And before I continue this discussion, I've been told there's a caller with us on the line. Dr. Wajid, do stay with us live on air. Inshallah, I'll come back to you with this question. I'd like to find out from you, being a Muslim doctor, because we have seen the campaign that is against the vaccine, and we have heard a lot of our own community even spreading certain information. Perhaps as a doctor, you would have a better understanding from the perspective of a medical science. So I'll come back to you, but before that, let's see who has joined with us through the telephone. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, my dear brother. How would you contribute to the discussion tonight?
Well, your discussion is Dr. Fauci. I'm sure the doctor knows who Dr. Fauci is. He gave a response to the question that you asked, Dr. Wajid. What a handsome young man he is. That regarding, can somebody contract COVID again after vaccine? And the answer is yes. One can contract but obviously you don't have symptoms. And people who are asymptomatic, so the whole population has to be. It's no good giving the vaccination to 30%, 40% of the people, 50%. It's no good. What are the other 50% going to do? The people who have been vaccinated, they will not feel any symptoms. The people who are asymptomatic, they're last on the list. So what's going to happen about that?
Okay. Now, when you said yes to the question that coronavirus can be contracted second time, just for the benefit of our viewers, what qualification do you have?
I I did not say that. Dr. Fauci. You know Dr. Fauci?
Okay, yes, yes. So you mentioned about Dr. Wajid who mentioned it. Fair enough. Thank you very much for that. I will go back to our guest, Dr. Wajid. He will clarify it more. And I really appreciate you giving us your valuable time and contributing to the discussion, having highlighting and citing the valid information that is there and that has been discussed. Now, Dr. Wajid, I'll come back to you. As you've heard our caller, we have seen on the news outlet and other doctors even mentioning about the fact that, yes, if someone has contracted coronavirus, they have gone through the vaccination, and the answer is also positive that they can contract a second time. Even though you mentioned about it, obviously nothing is guaranteed. But surely we have touched on the fact that still we have to follow the guidelines. Just because I have been vaccinated or someone has been vaccinated, you have clearly even responded saying that we still have to adhere to the policy that the government has put in place. If you would like to add to it.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for the caller. I know what Dr. Fauci said, and so I'm being a little bit more cautious because he will have more information than obviously I do, and he will have cutting edge information, and also virologists and others will have a new idea. It's literally as we speak, the information is coming out, but it's not out there yet. So I'm going to be very cautious and say, Allahu Alam, I don't know myself what's going to happen. There's a lot of information that we're going to find out about the vaccines as time goes on.
Yeah, because it's all trial. We live in a very unprecedented time and it's never happened before. So obviously nothing can be confirmed. Now, while we are in the discussion here, if you can see on the screen on our Eman channel, we'll be showing slides on how the vaccine will work. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, so if you see the next slide, the first one, as you can see how the vaccine will work. Clearly, using the diagram, we can clearly see here the information. If you can briefly touch on it, Dr. Wajid.
This is how vaccines generally work. So they take some genes from the coronavirus, as they're saying over there, and they're trying to use a part of it to produce a response. If we go to the next slide, probably will show that you put it into a harmless virus to make a vaccine and inject this into the patient. So you're trying to give a low, small dose of this disease or something that's similar to this disease to the person, so that the body gets used to it and it's able to fight it off when the real deal comes. It's like when you try to tell your children about stealing, maybe when they steal a sweet, and you teach them the lesson when they're young because it has less consequences and they can deal with it, so that when they're older, they're vaccinated now to stealing because they have learned the lesson and so on. So it's the same thing. It's teaching your body at a lower level so that it can implement that when the real deal comes. And a lot of people, they get worried that you're taking the DNA from a different animal or a different being and you're mixing DNAs together and so on and so forth. This is not. This is a misunderstanding of medical science. This is what happens when I think people take half the information. For example, there's a lot of worry that there's a combining of DNA, and this is somehow wrong. Well, insulin, which everyone who's diabetic and is insulin-dependent diabetic, they need it to survive, is made by combining DNA.
Okay,
All
now
vegetable rice is made by combining DNA.
DNA,
this is
yes.
not something that's weird.
That's right. And now we move on to the next slide. As you can see, Doctor, here, it gives us an explanation.
Yeah, and it's showing what I was talking about. The vaccine enters the cell, and the cell starts to produce the defensive layer. And after it produces the defensive layer, if you move to the next slide.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next slide.
Or if there might not be a next slide.
There you go. That's the next slide. That's the last one, I believe.
System to produce the antibodies, activate killer T cells. You're ready now. Your body is ready. Just like with a lot of the other vaccines, with the flu vaccine, the measles vaccines, and other vaccines, your body is ready. This is why humanity, by Bi'Iznillah, has managed to finish off smallpox. Smallpox is a disease with millions of people, but now we give it to everyone. Our bodies are used to it.
An apology, that's the last slide. If you can have a look at it, how it works.
And if the patient encounters coronavirus again, the body remembers, it's ready, it's triggered, it fights it. And you're safe most of the time, inshallah, from it.
Inshallah.
Very small version.
Thank you very much. Now, with regards to the discussion we had earlier before the caller, that a lot of information, misinformation, if you'd like to give us brief advice and how should we differentiate truth from falsehood?
my brothers and sisters, this is my real reason for being here. There is a lot of information on WhatsApp and Facebook about COVID vaccines. And it's got a lot of, it's they're like, oh, look at this is bad. It's got dog proteins in it. It's got this side effect and that side effect. Please, this is a serious matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. Because if you spread that, if you share it, if you let people continue in this falsehood, they will be hurting themselves. They'll be hurting their children. They'll be hurting others. I'm not saying accept everything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you look at something like that, before you share it, make sure that you're not doing a big mistake and just check. Check with either go to our website, britishima.org, ask a healthcare physician, ask a doctor you trust, a pharmacist you trust, get the real information before you share. Because if you do, it can create a huge fitna, which we're seeing it spreading everywhere. So please, inshallah, we don't want the Muslim community to suffer. We don't want our, like the hospitals are full of people dying right now. There are literally dozens of imams, scholars, elderly people who are in hospitals. If you ask them, this is not a joke. This is not a conspiracy. Let us deal with it in discussion without making accusations against each other. Either way, inshallah.
And if someone wants to find out any details, what would the best advice be? Sit down with a doctor and a scholar, or what other advice would you give?
Yeah, this is what I would advise, is to speak to someone you trust who is a medic, and not someone on the WhatsApp who you don't know and what their agendas are and who they are and what their thing is. This is why the British Islamic Medical Association exists. We have, alhamdulillah, everyone from people who work in virology, from intensive care specialists, everyone in these fields, and they're all, alhamdulillah, practicing Muslims. They love the community. They're part of the community. They will give you the accurate advice, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wajid Akhter. You're a GP and Vice President of BIMA. Thank you once again for giving us your valuable time, and inshallah, we hope to speak to you soon again sometime in the future.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Now, my dear viewers, there is some key information there. I know it's going to be very short and we are coming to a break, but one key information that the doctor has mentioned, Dr. Wajid Akhter, who is the Vice President of British Islamic Medical Association, and that is, we should not believe just what someone has told us, especially if it's coming from a non-qualified person with no authority. Just because it has been forwarded, we should always be careful that before we send the message to someone else, is this authentic? Is this verified? Is this been backed up by people of knowledge, people who are expert in the particular field, whether it be the field of medicine or the field of deen or fiqh? We should always be very, very careful that whenever we are sharing any information, forwarding any information, we should always ensure that we have to be factually correct. And if there is any issues or concerns, or if there is any doubt, then what should we do? As the doctor has mentioned, and as on many times our scholars have advised, and the verse that doctor has mentioned, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, ask those who are knowledgeable.